Alrighty. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another another Smudtalk. This is still number 45. We're continuing from yesterday, talking about God of War, and this time focusing on the 2018 as well as the Ragnarok versions that we didn't get a chance to talk about too much yesterday. And we broke it down. Hopefully everyone's time zone or schedule can facilitate a discussion. I don't think we have Mayo today. He was on yesterday for a bit. He was in another conversation that day, so he was kind of busy. And I think we could talk about a little bit more focusing on these two games and the transition between the, what was it, like a 15-year difference? I'm trying to remember the time frame, how we lost in between the three main God of War games, not accounting for the other games after it that were on the PSP.
So going from between 3 and the reboot is 8 years.
Oh, that's not bad. Yeah, I thought it was a lot longer than that because most people haven't played the PSP games or just never heard of them. So it's like, okay, yeah, they heard of God of War. Like, I remember those games back in the day, and then they got a really different experience. And we're going to talk about that experience. We just recently got it this year on Steam, I believe. And there's been a few issues with that. We're going to talk about those. So if people don't know, you can, in fact, go on Steam and buy it and check it out if you're so inclined. I obviously don't get any money from that. I'm just saying you have the option. It's no longer a PSP exclusive. So be my guest. Anyway.
The PS5
yeah?
Just make sure you buy the no PSN mod on the... No, not buy. Download it on Nexus.
That was my first question. Yeah, see, that was the big thing of what's going on. So not only did you have to have a Steam account and sign up for all that jazz,
you would also have to have the PlayStation account to be able to play their games still, regardless of being on Steam.
Right. So this is sort of an issue. I was listening to a bunch of people online. They would drop off their kids to whatever daycare or watch them at practice. They'd whip out their not their PSP. They whip out their Steam Deck, and they'd have to play. But if they didn't have wireless service, they couldn't connect to the PSN or the PSX. Was it the PSN network?
Did they add
defeats the whole purpose of a mobile device.
Yeah.
I could play it on Steam Deck without PSN last time I checked.
Really?
But that was a couple months ago.
Well, there go my hopes for a functioning Oboro Muramasa PSP port.
Well,
if that will ever happen.
The question was, is this a big blow to the game? Because a lot of people are giving it downvotes just because of this as opposed to enjoying the game as a game. So I don't know if this is turning people off from trying the game for the first time, or it's just hardcore players who played it on the consoles going, oh, I don't like this experience at all. It's even though I'm getting higher frame rates, even though my video card can support it no problem, it's just not the same experience. That's what I've been hearing, at least.
Because it's not on a handheld, or because you have to have PSN?
Because of the network requirements, always online sort of issues, then the hardware issues of if your computer's not good enough. But most people buy it because their computers are better and they're getting 60 frames now that they weren't getting on, I think it was frame locked on the consoles, the 30 frames, I can't remember. But that was the thing. Why else would you buy a game a second time around unless you really, really liked it? So it depends on the individual hardware setup.
Yeah, some games have turned me off from playing them or buying them on Steam because I had to I buy it on Steam, and then I have to make an extra account with some other service, like Calypso did for Tropico. I didn't bother with those games anymore because I don't want an extra account. What do I have Steam for in the first place? If it's something like Path of Exile, where the hardware runs on where you play on their servers, actively play the game on their servers, that's a different thing. But a solo game, that's bonkers. There's no justification for that.
Yeah, that seems to be happening a lot lately. You know, you gotta be online just to play a single player game.
Yeah, so that they can one day say, oh, we're not running it anymore. You have to buy it again on the new thing.
Yeah. In some cases, it's nice to have stats of other players and what they've done in certain games, which are already available for multiplayer options. And they tell you, okay, these characters did, like 30% of characters did this in Mass Effect 3. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. I don't mind that. Plus, it's a multiplayer game anyway. So I don't mind it when games are designed for those options.
Yeah. when you have that on Steam directly, okay, no problem. But when you want an extra service to log people into your own, then that's scummy.
I know after the PSN fiasco with Helldivers, they now made it for every PlayStation game that will come to PC, you will have to have a PSN account to play them. Which will also be the case for Spider-Man 2 when that comes to PC. That's what I know.
Yeah, with the first game only gave you the option of putting in the PSN account for like an extra costume or something. That was the worst of it with the first one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming we haven't played it on PC. I don't know anyone who has, aside from what I've read in reviews and online. But I'm trying to figure out the differences between the two games from the PlayStation release in terms of graphics, in terms of gameplay, stuttering. Is there any noticeable difference? Because I imagine if you have higher hardware support and better drivers and better software updates, that the PC should be able to handle the game a lot better than your average PlayStation 5. But we don't know.
Always fascinates me when emulation on a high-end PC has trouble with old games. I know there's a logic to it, but it's still emotionally it always baffles me.
Part of it is sometimes a coding issue trying to translate from the original hardware to the emulator.
Of course.
Yeah.
But still, hey, do you want to play this 20-year-old game on your future PC that is short of apotheosis? It's gonna stutter.
Emulating Wii U games on my Steam Deck is nice.
Oh, that's great. It's like well, Wii U specifically doesn't take much at this point to get it working. I mean, that's how I managed to play Breath of the Wild, the old version, just for the hell of it. I just decided to do it that way.
Oh, you played the Wii U version?
Yes. Because that's the one it was originally designed for. I just said screw it.
Huh.
And really, all that carries over from one game to the other, if you have them both on Switch, is just the picture from the Champion's Ballad. That's literally it. But to go back to the main topic, it's like we're seeing God of War 2 here right now, which is emulated, and it's damn near flawless.
Probably better than on the PS3.
Definitely better than the PS3 because of the known optimization issues that the collection had.
It also has a censorship. I saw from yesterday in the intro scene where Gaia talks through the several characters. That Kratos, don't die, you have to keep fighting. The harlot in his bed. In your intro, she was topless, and in the PS3 version, she lacks her chesticles. Censorship in a 18+ game. This is why. Just why?
Yeah. That's weird.
Especially one so brutal and bloody.
Well, that's Sony for you, I guess.
Well, but they only really do it with the sex stuff. Well, in the newer ones, they also do it with the brutality stuff, but...
In the end, they'll do it with both.
And I do want to point out
in Germany, it was always the other way around. They censor the brutality first, and then the sex stuff. And in America, it's the other way around, and now they're both coming together.
I wouldn't know about the Japanese version specifically, because some of these games did come out in Japan, published by Capcom, of all people.
Wonder what the censorship looks like there.
And even further irony there, the fact that Capcom would end up publishing goddamn Asura's Wrath, which is Japan's take on God of War, essentially.
Speaking of Capcom, there's actually an old letter from Hideaki Itsuno to Cory Balrog back when God of War 2 was released, and they were making DMC4. I actually do have it if you want to hear it, but it's just a small letter, not much significance.
I mean...
That'd be interesting to know. But that's some timing. It's obviously Itsuno ended up being the better of the two generally, considering DMC 3, 4, and 5 were all under Itsuno. But to go back to the PSN thing, it's like, in terms of ports to Steam, the whole secondary account thing just kind of defeats the purpose of the port, at least a little bit, just in general, not just PSN. Because Ubisoft has it, EA has it with Origin, Rockstar has it with their own damn launcher. It's like, it's getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
When the port is behind in performance and comfort, the pirated version always wins. And that is why what you really compete as a company when you make a port or re-release or remaster is, are you at least as good, if not better, than the pirated version? If you're not, you have a failed product.
And, and then they
you have to come to the pirates and say, hey, that thing you like, we made it official, we polished it, but we didn't change anything. Like these improvements that make everything worse. No, we didn't do any of that. It's just as is with all the rough edges, and you can give us money for that and have it officially. Then pirates will buy it, but they won't if you put some extra service nonsense on it. That's why GOG is as successful as it is.
All right, I'm going over the features that are provided in the PC options, and you get the standard stuff like 4K res, unlocked frame rates. There's using
higher graphical fidelity usually.
Yeah, they're using something called deep learning super sampling for Intel and NVIDIA cards. There's ultra wide support, so like the 21.9 or the 32.9, which if you have a giant screen that's wide, you can take advantage of that. There's, for some reason, access to DualShock 4, which is kind of neat. I thought that was specific to PlayStation, but apparently not. And then you have all the reflex support from NVIDIA, so low latency tech, the haptic feedback. I'm not sure exactly. I think that's also related to the controller. And then you have the spatial 3D audio, which who knows what standard that is these days. It's always a mystery to me with the audio. But yeah, those are the major features. And for $60 American, that seems reasonable considering the price on Steam for the original God of War 2018 is like $50. So visual upgrades, hardware upgrades, this is what you expect. Is it going to change your experience dramatically? I don't know. That's where it comes into question, whether it's worth the $60 if you've already played the game or already owned the game on your console.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wager that it is worth it.
Yeah, you really have to.
I would say no.
Yeah, it depends if you do a lot of your media consumption on your PC as opposed to your TV downstairs or wherever you have your TV.
I mean, yeah, and I would say if you don't have it and really want to get it, well, sure, and you play on PC. But if you already have it on PlayStation, well, it came out on the PlayStation 4. If you already played it all that time ago, I'd say no because it has so little replay value.
Oh, the pacing. Dear God. Half the main story is nearly a tutorial. I mean, I just beat the Vanaheim segment, and I still don't even have heavy runic attacks for both my axe and blades. What a mess.
I mean, also the story just doesn't go anywhere. It basically starts with something and is put on hold. Starts something else and is put on hold. Starts something else and is put on hold.
Yeah, the
game is so... Yeah, sorry, go on.
And then at some point they conclude some stuff, but it's just like... it tries to do so many different things that it forgets the main plot
you see, there's the boat captain.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Norse games, they're just long stretches of absolutely nothing just so that the writers have an excuse to tell their nonsensical stories. And I say
Did we talk
nonsensical
about-
as a whole, as a placeholder for all the bad words I want to use for those distortions.
I was trying to remember what his name was Jaffe, the guy who created the original God of War games.
Who created the series and directed the first game.
Yeah, and he's saying that 2018 was like this eclectic thing he was not expecting, so he was fascinated by it, but then he did not like the Ragnarok version for whatever reason, even though it seemed to be the same style, the same.
Oh, he didn't say?
No, I'm not sure exactly why he didn't like it, but he thought that because 2018 was so original, he was like, "Well, that's different." I wasn't I would never have thought of making a game like that. That's why he enjoyed it, but because they made a sequel, he was like, "Well, why would you just do the same thing over again, but just more of it?" It seems silly, which is odd because he made all kinds of sequels. So I don't know if it was because of his background of, "Wow, this is a new style of game in the thing that I made." Cool. But why would you do it again? Because it's more of a creative experience for him because he's made them all up to that point. So maybe there's some elitism behind knowing how the sausage is made and seeing someone else make a sausage in the same flavors, just different style, going, "Oh yeah," and then doing it again like a few years later. Like, why would you do it again, sir? I don't know.
Well, the thing is, that I think that there's one difference, and that is that the Greek games improved from game to game. In
Ragnarok got
combat
worse.
fluency, in combat fluency, especially because the first one is very clunky. The second one already is much more fluent, and you still have the same fluency in puzzles and where the chests are hidden a little bit better. There's a lot more flow in the second one. But with, as you said, with Ragnarok, that's just worse. It's a long stretch. The gameplay is boring. The battle is boring. The puzzles are boring. The puzzles are unnatural, put into the world everywhere. When the original here, you walk through world-sized dungeons. That's okay. But Ragnarok and the game before, the 2018, that's just random puzzles for no reason, for being puzzles.
And I think some people complained about the Ragnarok one, where you, like, if you have like another character with you, like your son or Freya, they constantly make comments about the puzzles, like, "Oh, you should probably do this."
Yeah, they don't shut up about do the thing to solve the thing.
Right. Yeah, I know a lot of people complained about that.
Kratos also talks quite a bit about it. There's an early on scene where there's a zip line and Kratos is like, "Oh, maybe I could use that to zip down there." I'm like, "Oh, no shit, Sherlock."
Yeah, and in these games, in God of War 2, they started with adding hints that you can deactivate, by the way. You can deactivate the tutorial, you can deactivate the hints. You can go show it right in the options. There, hints tutorials. You can have one, the other, both, or none. It's great. And the hints, they do show up at the most inconvenient of moments, like when you're right mid-jump or above a chasm or something. But you can deactivate them. Ragnarok doesn't allow you that. It just keeps talking into your ear that, "Oh, have you tried hitting the boss on the weak spot? Hey, you should really hit the boss on the weak spot. We haven't even started the battle, for fuck's sake."
Yeah, with that, and the Greek games only do that by straight up showing you after you've made a certain amount of progress in the fight, after you've put in the effort to actually fight the damn thing. Without anything else, it just gives a little zoom in of what you could do, then you do it, and that's it.
God of War 2 is already very annoying with its camera rolls of, "Hey, there's the door where you want to go, and there's the lever, and now I go back to Kratos so you can play this section." Is that the hint system, or is that fixed?
With when it tells you that you gotta go through a certain, I think that is part of the hint system in this case. But because it didn't say anything about the door this time, because I had it off.
Well, I don't see a section that I remember where that would happen right now.
That's really I can't tell. That one right there is really the only one. You use the thing, and then that's it.
No, that's not what I mean.
Are you referring to the beginning of the game?
No, like sections like here it's done to introduce an enemy. It's a little mini cutscene. That's okay, but it does this for certain puzzle rooms, where it shows you all the relevant elements for the puzzle, and the first game didn't do that. The second one does it. I have only played it once, so I don't know. I was too lazy to shut off the system. And I left it on the first time because the game has different hotkeys than the first game for the different actions, like block and magic and what buttons to mash, which do make sense. And that's why I left the hint system on, because I thought, not that the game gives me some new button, expects me to do some new button prompts on different things, and I don't know what they are. That's why. But what Ragnarok does is absolutely inexcusable. Give me an info box, that's it, and then keep going. For the whole game is the tutorial. You can do that well when you introduce new mechanics and such. And technically, the first game even did that with the final boss fight against Ares, because every phase is a completely different game. The first is a standard boss fight. The second one is the Protect Your Family, where it does give you an info box of, hey, hug your family with circle so that you transfer health to your family. So that's technically a new mechanic that you get explained in the last section of the game. And then the third one is self-explanatory, where you don't have actual health, but you share your health bar with Ares, and have to do enough damage over time to win.
It's tug of war.
That's a good way to put it. It's tug of war, which is a really nice way to illustrate. These are two gods. They could technically fight for eternity. They just hit back and forth. So that's a really fun thing, but it's not remotely the same what 2018 does. And there are some other Japanese games that do this introduction of new mechanics late in the game relatively well. The Xenoblade games are pretty good examples of that, where it's not annoying, but rather, oh look, here's something new, cool, that is unlocked because of story progress. But it's also not something that you missed before that.
There's one caveat to this. In Xenoblade 3, the tutorials are horrible.
I still haven't touched it.
1 and 2 are fine. No, just in 3, the tutorials are non-skippable, non-disableable, and you have to do exactly what they're telling you to do, otherwise the tutorial doesn't even close. So it's just...
Oh no.
The tutorials are the worst thing in that game.
Oh no.
That sounds pretty bad.
One and 2 didn't really have tutorials in that sense, did they?
The thing is, 1 and 2 just had pop-up windows. To pop up, you could read it, or you could just close it.
I think in 1 it was just the do this Monado attack. Okay, now do the other Monado attack.
Yeah.
And that was it. And 2 was... I don't even know.
In 2 it was just pop-up windows, but in everybody, like all forums were complaining about how the tutorials were bad in 2, so they made them horrible. They tried to fix it so that you couldn't miss the tutorials, so it's just... Like in at one point you even have to specifically use a specific button to close the menu, otherwise the tutorial isn't done. It's
So they went in the other direction because they realized the people who complain to them are brain dead?
Yes,
and we all have to suffer for it?
Yes, but that really is the worst part of 3. But It's a similar thing to the non-stop talking, but the non-stop talking is non-stop, so it's more annoying to me.
By the way, this is a puzzle I took forever to figure out because I couldn't connect that the two water streams are connected and go in a circle.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that they would be.
Yeah, although there's an indicator that there's trash going through it, like a piece of pottery and a severed arm, and they are in the same order. But my brain just wrote that off as, well, it's an old game, so it's just a standard thing they copied over instead of no, they're connected.
Reused assets.
I liked how before we got to this room, there was that column that Kratos was hitting the guys on top with his spells.
Yeah.
But he just grabs the column like it's like 5 times bigger than he just grabs it.
He can do that. He can do that, and he can push the. Well, he still had the god powers when he pushed the Colossus of Rhodos back, but he can do those things. But he can't throw the corpse over the spikes, or jump with the corpse over the spikes to put it on the switch. No, we have to do this weird thing with the river.
Look, as soon as you die, your body gets extremely heavy, so...
Infinite
corpses
weight.
are too... Yes. All your inventory is still in your corpse.
With the column, you also have the point that that's something I took a few seconds to figure, because I didn't get the prompt for hit the right shoulder button. That I could actually do that. I thought I had to somehow jump up on the sides after those columns were destroyed.
That was clever. I like that. Giant rock monster. Where was that?
Yeah. In this game, they started really with hard indicators, like the flashing there on behind the rock monster. That you can destroy this. Yeah, cool. Don't be too obvious. And
the one thing,
one
thing I would say, it goes into that topic as well in the newer games. Sometimes, or very often these days in newer games, the graphical fidelity hinders visibility.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks great and everything, but because everything looks so great, you sometimes can't distinguish between what's supposed to be interactable and what not. And then they use horrible methods to fix that problem, like non-stop talking, yellow paint, stuff like that, instead of trying to make
paint.
Yeah, that's trying to be clever. It's similar to the indicator here that the rock is flashing, so you can interact with it.
Yeah,
but it's less disrupting.
And honestly, I do find the flashing less immersion breaking than the yellow paint.
It's very reminiscent of Capcom games, especially with Devil May Cry, the first one. They'll introduce a statuette or some sort of switch on the other side of the room. It'll just like highlight it for you with the camera movement and then zoom right back to you. So that's pretty standard. I don't think it's inherently bad to have interactive objects be a different shade or light up a bit. You want to dumb it down enough so that you know what you're doing. It's when you have puzzles that are complex for the sake of being puzzles within the environment. Like, let's say there was like a series of blocks that you had to stack on top of each other, but you had no idea you could stack blocks till that point. Like it would have to tell you can do that before you can actually start performing that action, and then you realize, I could stack all kinds of blocks. I could put 3 blocks up together. I can put them in like a staircase. Like you can do lots of different things. That's the part of experimenting with not necessarily a sandbox, but just the basic mechanic of putting blocks on top of each other, like you're playing Zelda and you can make blocks with the wand and push them across the ground, like stuff like that. It's very straightforward puzzles that you would have played back in the 90s on Super Nintendo, but they're just saying, okay, now it's 3D. We can't make it too complicated. So we have to highlight things. We have to flash things. Like, look at this. He's just picking up like.
I would never thought of that without the flashing.
He just picked up an entire building and just toppled it on the ground. It's like,
but he could throw the corpse.
Yeah, he was dragging a little little column around. I'll just pick up the whole damn building and throw it on the ground. I was like, oh, okay, you can do that.
Yeah, and he does that in the 2018 one where he picks up he flips the whole temple over.
Yeah,
and
but
it's
somehow he
like
can't jump anymore.
Right, yeah. And it's like the whole temple,
He's
like
old
the
now.
multiverses or whatever, the other realms. I'm sorry, the realms. But yeah, you're right. He can't jump anymore.
Look, Kratos could double jump before he had any godly powers. That means if he gets old, he can still jump, but not double jump.
He got older. His knees got bad.
Yeah, but then he would still be able to jump.
It's part of Spartan training to learn to double jump. You can kick the air so hard as a Spartan. No, but one example that I really like of showing you what's interactable and what's not is in the original Silent Hill 2. James looks at stuff. He looks at it.
Oh yeah,
and it's really noticeable how he looks at it. So you're like, oh, I can interact with that. The thing don't flash. They aren't sometimes not even that obvious, but he looks at it and you're like, oh, there's something.
There's some games that do that,
and I really like.
Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
And this is the thing where Ocarina of Time really had a good idea with having your helper cursor thing fly through the level with the little fairy Navi that just would go to elements in the vicinity and give you an excuse to have a cursor over it.
But yeah, I was gonna say, I read recently they put that feature, the Silent Hill 2 thing, where he'll look at an object, like an item or something. They put that in the recent remake, or the remaster of Silent Hill 2.
Yeah, you have different options of how stuff should be highlighted, and you can turn off all the highlights and just go by what he looks at.
I feared you would have said they patented it.
No. No.
Yeah, just the new God of War just do the worst of all possible ways for that stuff.
I like how he's picking up this guy. He weighs maybe, I don't know, 150, 180 pounds of armor, but he's like throwing like giant buildings. He's like, I gotta leisurely walk with this guy. And I'm not sure what a human... Yeah, how does a human body destroy an entire giant gear system that looks like...
It has armor on.
Oh, yeah.
It could also be the armor.
Throw some
rocks
at
Greek warriors were made of sterner stuff.
Our hero, ladies and gentlemen.
It's like, oh, this man is so heavy, I gotta take my time with him. But this building over here, give me like 5 seconds, I'm good.
And that's poor Jason of the Argonauts that just got eaten there.
Oh.
Wasn't he in one of the other God of War games?
Jason, no.
I thought he was.
Are you confusing him for Perseus?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Perseus is later in this game.
Yeah. But I was confusing the two. Okay. Yeah, it's been a long time.
Nom nom.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of DMC, just not... It's kind of like its predecessor. It's like the Greek beat-em-up version of that.
I mean, before God of War, what games were like this? The only thing that I can think of is Soul Reaver.
Kinda, yeah. The adventure part.
Yeah. The closest that come to this are Soul Reaver and DMC 1.
I was going to say Lords of Shadow, but that's Capcom. Or sorry, that's...
well, first of all, that's
Konami.
later.
Yeah, that's Konami trying to like do its own thing or reinvent itself with Castlevania for no reason.
Had anyone ever played Shadow Man?
I've heard of it.
I've heard of it. Never played it.
The very old one on the PS1?
I thought it was a N64 game.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. I thought it was N64.
I know that there's a PS1 game called Shadow Man, which is horrible and unplayable.
Really?
Yeah, I once saw a video on it. Some YouTuber made a video and it's playing horrible PS1 games, and he was just like, what the fuck is going on? But it is possible that there's also a...
It had a crazy story, but I don't know anything of it anymore. was one of those games I wouldn't get as a kid.
Oh, the one that was on N64 did have a PlayStation version. Yeah.
Where the then
Released
it
in
was that.
1999.
Then it was that. Is it a black
Yeah.
blue guy on the cover?
Yeah. It's that
He's
one.
holding a skull, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
It
looking
was
at
re-released
the
on
picture of the
PlayStation
N64
4,
version.
Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch.
What? Holy!
Oh yeah,
Time
they
to
remastered.
play.
Yeah, they
Yeah, but
remastered it back in 2021.
Cool. But the
And they
thing
made a sequel to
with games like this is that God of War really improved on it, even though the first one was still clunky. But you can just feel with the second game already how much more it flows, how much the combat moves flow into one another. It still has issues with block and dodge ranges and such, especially when you learn the game. But you can do, when you master it, I've seen people do fluid things there that I do in Bayonetta. But Bayonetta is prone to do that because that game invented a dodge offset, which means that you can cancel a combo mid-action to do a dodge, and while holding dodge, then continue the combo afterwards, which makes the fight a real dance without pause, no matter what, if you know how to do it.
So animation canceling?
Yeah, but it just flows, and thanks to dodge offset, the game can also be as fast as it is. And God of War, I think, paved the way to that somewhat.
You know,
But when when I now play it, it's like, oh god, nothing is moving. Oh god, everything's clunky.
just looking at him playing God of War 2, it would have been so cool if the new ones had the same camera type.
Yeah.
Just imagine how cool stuff could look with modern day technology with a fixed camera.
Well, this level design is like an architect's dream. Like you could just do crazy rooms. Like imagine drawing a 2D side scroller and then saying, okay, now we have to go up and down and forward and backward on a Z-axis. You're like, or a Y-axis up and down, or an X-axis. Like you're just adding all this depth, and everything is tailor-made for that camera. There's no need to spin around or, admire.
You don't have to slather yellow paint everywhere because you could use the camera cleverly to show where to go and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah, everything's handcrafted to be this way. And that's, it's just a bunch of walls and a bunch of ladders. But even then, it's like, wow, like this, imagine one of the gods shaping this world or this temple. Or even in the first game, the labyrinth. Like imagine him designing that labyrinth all your life.
The Temple of Pandora.
Yeah, it's just so intricate. And with Ragnarok, you get big vistas, not vistas, but you get like water. You could travel throughout the lakes and all these mountains to climb and stuff like that, which is beautiful. No one's saying it doesn't look good, but it's nowhere near as intricate and nowhere near as complex as just walls and gadgets and all these little crazy rooms.
One thing I also find funny is that the shoulder camera is often called cinematic with Sony exclusive, but the camera of the old games is just so much more cinematic because it's controlled. It shows you exactly
it is
what
put to the scene. That's why it's actually cinematic, because it is made to show a scene.
Yeah,
and
you don't get lost.
It's sometimes placed in a specific way to show you in the distance what else is in the world, like a later part of the level or previous one. There's some point in the first game when you are further at the top of the temple, you can in the distance see Athens burning. But it's just over the edge.
This is kind of like pre-Resident Evil 4 when once you started getting the free camera movement. If you were given that in a game like this, you would want to walk around. You'd want to spin around the camera, like, oh, what's that? facade? What's this statuette? Like, you'd be looking all over the place and you wouldn't be playing the game. Whereas this game is like, no, there's one path, even though it's intricate and it feels like you're in this giant building and wherever you are in Tartarus, they give you exactly where you need to go, what you need to look at, and it's kind of like on rails, but it's not. It doesn't feel like you're on rails, even though you technically are.
Yeah. The other thing is, and that is in the first game for Hades especially, the camera is deliberately close so that you don't see enough of the level, all of it at once, so that you don't see how gamey it actually is. Well, you already have that from the jump and run puzzles or platforming that you have to do there. But through that, it just looks bigger, and you can hide your little extra pathways outside of the camera, so you don't see everything right away.
So
there are positives to this.
For me, in the 2018 God of War, there was this central temple with the lake, etc. Every time I got back to the lake, I had to reorient myself to know where did I just come from? Where do I need to go? Not as in, I knew game-wise, the game told me, oh, the place you need to go is that place, but it's just like, how do I get there again?
Yeah, and the lake would like drop because the snake moved. So it would open up whole new areas too.
Which is better than what Ragnarok does, which is lock off every realm until a certain progression in the story based on getting Seeds of Yggdrasil, which is the rework from the original.
Yeah, so... Oh shit, I just lost the point.
Hey, don't be distracted by the ugly snake woman.
I just find the lake and in Ragnarok also the sledge stuff. These parts are just so out of place for the games. It's in a game like Breath of the Wild. There's a lot of empty, not used time, quote unquote. You use for traversing through the world, but that part is made fun by designing the world incredibly well. In the new Ragnarok games, it just feels like dead air. You don't feel like, oh, what's behind that corner? Oh, what's behind that mountain? What's behind that building? It's just more like, how do I get there? When do I get there? Why does it take so long to get there?
Yeah, that's the thing about... I can appreciate when games want to give a feel of size and travel, but Ragnarok didn't do that right, if it even should have done it.
Well, neither of them does it right.
Yeah. What did I want to say? No, I lost it, sorry.
Well, they basically go halfway between making it open world and not making it open world, and it's in this awkward in-between space.
Oh yeah, I remember. Breath of the Wild, the world has people in it. God of War in Athens has people. When God of War 2 starts, you have the Spartans fight another army in Rhodos. That's still people. The towns are full. You see, this is a world where actually things are going on. When in the Norse games of God of War, technically you are in Midgard, but the only Midgardians that are actual people are the raiders that try to attack Kratos in the woods. There are no actual people. There are no villages. There are no towns. There's nothing.
Aren't those Draugrs, as in undeads, that attack you? I thought they weren't even people.
The Draugr are
characters too.
There are Draugr, and then there's the raiders who are together with the weird forest deer dwarf ladies.
I forgot about the raiders.
See, they're that irrelevant. You don't even notice them as much different from the Draugr. It's crazy.
Funny thing, in them trying to make it less gamey, they made the world feel incredibly gamey. If you know what I mean. as the stuff connects in ways where it's just empty spaces, no one there, and the only people you meet are enemies, and it just feels like getting from A to B is just like checking off a list. I have to go there now, do this set piece.
Yeah, and look in contrast to Bayonetta. You walk through cities that have people in them. They're out of phase, but they're there.
And they react to you breaking boxes.
Yes.
And stuff like that. At least in 2, I don't remember if in 1 they also had that detail.
Well, you guys are talking about, you're referring to like level navigation or just navigating in general. Do you think that it's like the same standard that we would get from the first 3 games of just navigating the world and exploring? Because every time you move in this game, there's always a little cutscene to say, okay, like look at what we're doing right now. It's just showing you the level. Like,
Here, I think this is too much.
This
is too much. In the first God of War, you get in and maybe you get a scenic shot, but you don't get the entire level shown and the exit. Because the last shot here was the exit. So you have the hints turned off. So this is not part of the hint system. This is just fixed into the game. And yeah, I'd rather not have that. Or have the option to turn this off as well. Because then this is player knowledge. This is not what Kratos knows.
To answer Smud's question is as far as I remember, 2018, it doesn't have these scenic shots usually to show you stuff. It's just the third-person camera, and when you get somewhere, maybe there's an introduction shot to the area, but it's usually you have to look around yourself to find the stuff. And I mean, it's not hard to find
which
the stuff.
Is okay.
They stick out.
Yeah, which is okay, but it also means that the puzzles they make are much simpler than anything in this game.
I think there's one area where they show you the whole area, but just show you how. It's not really showing you how to traverse it like this camera did. It's more showing you how big the area is, or how tall it is more accurate.
It's a rather complex room.
The traversal is really very much Silent Hill 4 style, with the camera that extremely close to your character and looking around that way.
Yeah. What I liked about the first game is that there was a reason why you had a giant temple full of puzzles and traps. Because there's an architect who built it. Who built these things? Why do they have all these trap rooms and mechanisms?
Yeah, I like how in like one of the previous rooms where you were on the ceiling and you had to avoid those saw blades. It's like, okay, who thought of that? It's like, okay, just in case anybody crawls on the ceiling, let's put saw blades right there.
I think back and forth. I think in this case it was straight up the fates that created all this as a trial for anyone that wanted to be an.
No, I don't think that makes any sense, because the fates could just make it in a way that would actually kill Kratos.
Well, Kratos is the wild card here.
Yeah.
He's the only one able to actually go through it, just like with Pandora's Temple in the first game. He's the one that's able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to cut you off. If they said like, "Oh yeah, we built this because of Kratos," I'm like, okay, I could believe that.
Yeah, but the trials.
Right, but I'm saying
the trials to reach the sisters are for it. Like anyone that would desire to reach the sisters, but of course Kratos being too angry to die first off.
Right,
and somebody would have had to build it.
Right, but I'm saying, like, you know, if the fates knew in advance, like somehow, like maybe they didn't know that it was Kratos exactly, but someone that was, you know, similar to him, I could understand that. But you know, if it's just for
whether they knew or not of Kratos specifically, that would still be part of the hubris that's synonymous with the entire pantheon.
Yeah, because if I came to a room, it's like, okay, and they're like, okay, you got to crawl on the ceiling while these saw blades are going around. I'm like, nah, I'm done. I have no way to traverse that.
I don't even have any tools in order to crawl around the ceiling.
Right.
Yeah, but
Can I just use the grappling hook thingy to get to the target directly.
Saw blades are just nice decoration. They just liven up the place, you know?
Okay, so just in case I ever get filthy rich, I will build a home that has nonsense like saw blades on the ceiling in order to scare off intruders.
I mean, it would be a great conversation topic. Like, you have guests over, like, hey, want to see my saw blade ceiling?
Well, interesting story there.
Why do you have that? Well, in case I ever
Have you ever heard of God of War?
Yeah, and in case anyone ever wants to rob me, he'll see the ceiling saw blades and then think, well, if he has saw blades on the ceiling, I don't want to go any further. Who knows where else he has saw blades or piranha door traps or flamethrowers?
I guess.
Oh, the bathroom? Oh, it's down that way. Wait! I didn't turn off the saw blades.
Shank dead. Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you want to, the bathroom is down the hall to the right, 3 hops over the barbed wire, then limbo beneath the laser cutter.
I hope you brought your grappling hook.
Over there, there's my pile of corpses in case you need the button held down. Just so you know.
What button
held down?
We're in reality. What button are you talking about?
The one on the ground.
Oh, that button. I thought you meant one on the controller, which is a great idea of...
Yeah.
How did Kratos know that he would need to do that? Put up the things in order to do that in the end?
Yeah, you see how silly that was? That was basically a Pythagoras switch where you have this elaborate machine just to do something simple, which he just could have done the first one, as opposed to jumping through all 4. Yeah, exactly. A Goldberg machine, yeah.
There's several names for that.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Maxim machine also works.
That was the Japanese TV show that made things like Goldberg machines, but they called it Pythagoras switches for whatever reason. So yeah,
I'm sure you would have liked that.
The best Japanese show is still Takeshi's Castle, speaking of Rube Goldberg machines.
This is where the game designer's like, let's do something stupid but fun. It's like, okay, let's make all these gigantic machines.
You did. Oh no! Right, he pushes the whole thing down.
Yeah. Oh my god, I forgot.
I don't wanna. I don't die. Fuck you, mechanism.
Gears.
Fuck you, trap.
Thousands of tons worth of stone and steel. Nah, I'll just push it.
Yeah. Again, built with normal people in mind.
First, I must kill
dogs.
It's all
great conversation starters.
Somebody has to feed all those little Cerberus pups.
If you want to stop the trap, you have to push against it.
Yeah, and think of but there's this one. You remember the room with the corpse going around the secret river? Have you ever looked at the gate in that room? There's a giant hole in the middle that Kratos could just jump through.
You know,
the gate, please.
You know what I feel the worst about? The person that has to reset these traps.
Oh god!
Imagine being that person.
Yeah,
it's like, son of a bitch! Someone made it.
That also means that there's always old palaces. They always have secret corridors and secret doors for the staff to move through, so that they can bring your food and your cleaning stuff, just so that the nobles aren't annoyed by the staff running around all the time. Right. And so you would have these like janitor vents where you come out of the side door from backstage to reset the trap. And I'm waiting for the subversive game that gives you an entrance to the janitor vents where you just walk past all the traps behind the scenes.
Yeah, one of the servants just like leaves the door open by accident.
Oh damn. Oh no, you're behind the matrix. Damn it. Sorry. Can you please go back to the stage and do the puzzles normally?
Yeah, the guy that resets the traps is just sitting there reading the paper, and he goes, no, you can't be back here.
Speaking of it, it's a bit of a tangent, but it reminds me of in Hollow Knight, in the beginning area, there's an extremely rare chance that you find a certain bug, as in not bug as in fault in the game, but bug as in literal animal bug. And if you kill it, you get a note what it is, and then it explains, oh, it's a fix bug. They're the bugs in this world that all keep fixing all the stuff you break when running through it.
Bullshit.
So they even added that to the game. It's really funny. And when you jump down, it's fixing a lamppost that you can break. So that's one thing I find really funny, where they integrated it into the world they have these hordes of bugs that fix everything that you destroy.
Oh, I remember the guy, and when you jump down the well,
yeah,
after you destroyed the sign down in the well, the signpost, and sometimes when you jump back down, the post is repaired, and sometimes the bug is right there that repairs it, and you can kill. And if you kill him, the signpost won't be repaired again.
Yes.
What a cool camera angle. Just
yeah, that is a hidden loading screen.
And it's in every single Greek game, as late as Ascension.
Yeah, there's a few. This is the obvious, and it's a very scenic hidden loading screen. In the first game, you also have this. You have one at the beginning and one at the end, which gives you a bit of an ellipsis to the story. And in the collection edition, these are fucked, because you run up the stairs or down the stairs, and then at the end the game freezes for 5 seconds to load. While it should have done the loading in the background while you run up or down the stairs.
Which the original version does, and then some.
Yes, as intended. The other version where you have that is when you have corridors that have a right angle and then another right angle. Those are also hidden loading screens. Ultima 9 did this, but you could sometimes see it because they messed up the geometry and textures. But that's how Ultima 9 was praised as one of the first games to give you the illusion of a seamless world where you walk from the overworld into a dungeon and you don't notice that you're actually changing the place. If you were perceptive, you could see the slight shift in geometry. It's cool stuff. Deus Ex, the first one, also did that with the 90-degree angle tunnel, but you would get the loading pause. It was just to give you the to prevent the dissonance of not having the geometry loaded.
Makes sense.
That's one thing I remember being very positive about the 2018 one. It was very smooth, so there wouldn't be loading screens basically unless you fast traveled.
Well, those games went complete shit. It's what mainly destroyed them was the lame combat system and the writing.
Yeah, I mean the writing in the first one is serviceable. It's not great, but anything. But in the second one, it's just bad.
Mm-hmm. All right, one of the indicators, the wall indicators. At first, in 2018, I liked this idea of these rune paintings on the walls that indicated you can climb here. But then I noticed it's the entire path is the rune arrows, which is especially excruciating in Ragnarok. Because they have the cave with the giant squids. You have the entire cave is painted in these stupid lines. And there's no other indicator that you can actually crawl up the wall. There's no natural indicator, but hey, when these chalk paintings are here, that's where you can climb. That's so stupid.
Especially when the Dark Elves probably wouldn't even use that paint, just to discern that they can even traverse that.
Well, the Dark Elves can fly in that game.
The thing
and that's where we get into law issues, but crazy.
You can make stuff stick out without it being immersion breaking, like the blinking, the flashing in God of War 2, or an example in my head right now is Ghost of Tsushima, where it still looks like a rock. It just, it's obvious that you can interact with that rock, so you can climb it, etc.
Yeah, it's the climb rock.
Stuff I'm fine with, because it just looks like a rock that sticks out. But that's fine, but it's just when it's super obvious, or the classic example of the yellow paint, where it's just like, how did paint get there? There's one game. Oh yeah, Mirror's Edge does it extremely well with the color scheme, etc. And you have so-called the runner vision, which you can turn off. Where
that's the hard mode of the game.
The interactable. Well, it's also all about parkour, so interacting in with the environment in that specific way. But it is
and
so well done.
Being first person, because in first person you're less used to this.
But also, it's so well done in a way that if you really get into the flow of the game, you don't even notice that the stuff is red highlighted, but you just think, oh, it's just a red pipe. Because it flows so well in the game with the color scheme it has, etc. So that's another example of doing it extremely well.
Yeah, and that's on normal. On easy, the entire path is red. That's bit out of order. You noticed that. Yeah. And with the hard mode, there's no red. It's amazing.
Great game.
Mm-hmm. So experiment that worked and that nobody ever did again, as far as I know.
Well, they made a sequel which was not as good, but the parkour was great in it.
Well, we could talk about the story progression of the games, because there's a lot of more talking and dialogue in the 2018 and the Ragnarok game. Just because the focus is not so much on combat, it's also about talking to your son and trying to have scenes with him and the prophecy that they're trying to figure out. So it's not just going up to the mountain to spread your wife's ashes, it's all this other stuff going on. So would you say the standards of progression, like story progression here, is very simple. It's very straightforward. Go here, fight a boss, get a little story, keep going, and get your revenge on. It's very straightforward. Whereas Ragnarok, there's all kinds of like 2-3 minute conversations. You could watch them on YouTube, probably longer, of just talking about killing and the gods and your mom and all these other things.
It's all about how Odin is a bad capitalist, and with the Greek games, it's all environmental storytelling through and through every room. In the first game, the Poseidon room, where you get the trident, it has an absolutely stunningly beautiful carving that's a little bit weathered behind it. Mermaid statues on the sides that look like actual women, but the carving on the stone is not a mermaid. If you look closely, it's a water spirit. It's a naiad, and that was made by a true artist, because that the entire thing looks like water flowing, because it's a water spirit. It's absolutely stunning. And the Norse games are games called God of War that don't focus on war. They don't focus on killing stuff. They focus on bad parenting, which they also encourage on the main character. It's pathetic. The story progression in the Norse it's contrived. Well, it's like constant exposition.
One thing that really hinders at least in the 2018, because I've played that one, only seen I've seen quite a bit of Ragnarok, but not all of it because I couldn't stomach it. But in a story progression in 2018, it really falters in that they try to make them part of the myths. In the Greek games, Kratos has its own story. It's his own story. It's not Kratos is part of this myth, and he did that in that myth that we already know. It's not like he was actually. It wasn't actually. What's his name again? It wasn't actually Hercules doing it. It was Kratos doing it. So that's kind of what the Norse ones do with making his son Loki.
Yeah.
And so they make him be part of Baldur's story. They make them be part of their story, and they twist the Norse gods in such a way that they fit the story they want to tell, rather than making a story based on what is. And so you get to this confusing story progression where you have the story between Baldur and Kratos, the story between Baldur, Kratos and his son, story between Freya, Baldur, and Kratos, the story between Freya and Kratos. So it's like having these distinct stories that are together but separated from each other. So they, and then you have parts where.
Sorry to cut you off. And nobody can explain anything properly. Like the whole thing with Kratos and Baldur at the very beginning of the 2018 one is based off of a misunderstanding. You know, Baldur's there looking for the wife,
which is again a cheap soap opera writing technique,
right,
which is one of the only ones that incompetent writers know how to do.
Right.
It's the same way that they destroyed the writing in the Shogun remake.
Right. But yeah, that's what I'm getting at. It's like if Baldur had just explained himself properly, he probably would have just left. He's like, "Are you talking about my wife? Yeah, she just died like a couple of days ago. You're a little late."
Also,
just been like, "Oh well, shit."
How cheap is it that in the first game, the first thing they do is kill the wife? In the second game, the first thing they do is kill the dog.
Oh, do we want to talk about Fenrir's death? Because there's a whole bunch of bullshit around that, especially.
Let's get into that.
There's so much more. There's so much more about everything to say. May say one positive. I just before we get into all the shit.
All right.
There's one of my favorite puzzles, and it's not a difficult one. In God of War 1 was the one about the metaphorical putting together the soul of the architect who was struck by the loss of both his sons, where that shattered his belief in the gods. And that's a Tetris-like puzzle where you can't move the rocks up, so they're stuck on the ground, and you have to rotate some and make a wall out of them. And there's a nice little thing about that puzzle that rarely a game today ever dares. There's one block too much. So the way you can fuck up that puzzle and get stuck with it is by putting in that block that shouldn't be there without knowing that it shouldn't be there, and it will confuse you for a while. If you didn't do that, the solution is super obvious. But there's this little extra thing to confuse you, this red herring in the puzzle. I love that little thing. You can't do that too often, but there it fit perfectly.
Is that it for the last positive thing? It's nice to know the last.
Now we can go into the shit, unless you want to comment on that.
The thing that I wanted to get into is still to Smud's question of the story progression. Between between the Greek ones and the Norse one, there's so much progression that isn't done and doesn't make sense. I don't buy that Kratos would be such a distant father. I just don't buy it. Then
especially given after everything he went through specifically to avenge his family.
And just look at the final battle with Ares. That sequence alone tells you everything about Kratos' relation to his family that you could ever know.
And then between the first Norse one and Ragnarok, there's shit ton progression that isn't even explained to you. It's just like, hey, there it is. There's dog. Where did the fucking dog come from? Why is it dead already? It's just.
And why should I care?
Why did he start with the dead of?
It's like basically you can sum it up as like what the dog doing?
Yeah, where did it come from? It's dead already. Why did it? Literally, first seeing the dog that came out of nowhere dies, and it's like, how am I supposed to care about it?
On that level, when you're presented with it that way, your first reaction as a normal person, not as a furry, is, oh, well, dog, we'll get another.
Yeah, it's just
Well, not only that, they also explain several hours later how they got the dogs. It's like, okay, this explanation comes like
Too late.
really late. Yeah.
You should begin someplace where it makes sense for me to care about it. It's very much, it reminds me so much of the scene in The Last of Us 2 where the game forces you to play with the dog. With one character, you can't progress the game if you don't
that we
play
get
with
this.
the dog.
Oh, we must have empathy with the character now.
No, it's supposed to be a shock moment because with the other character, you kill the dog later on. So
right.
it makes you care about it by forcing you to throw the toy for the dog.
God.
Yeah, and you know
It
the
reminds
dog
me
is
so
already
much.
Flag before you even meet him in the first place. Before you even get to Freya and the sled, he's given the death flag through dialogue. That's a great when you have to establish he's going to die before you meet him.
Oh, great.
There's also another
and
thing that matters
sorry.
with his death. You know how he's resurrected because Atreus put one part of his soul into the knife, and then he's put into Garm's body?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
We have to talk about that. That was not Freya, that was Loki himself, or Atreus, because I refuse to accept that this brat is Loki. This whole thing of the split soul is not a Norse thing. That's a Finnish thing.
And it
They
didn't
took
even
this
come
from
up
the
until
Kalevala.
Ragnarok either.
It's not in Norse mythology. It's not in Celtic mythology. They just took something from something completely different, well, somewhat, and put it in there. The same way that they put this light elf, dark elf thing with the insect thingies that are the chords that wage war against each other. They took that from the Celtic mythology, where you have the Seelie and Unseelie chords doing this.
Yeah, and the split soul
This is
thing
not-
is like that's something they introduced in Ragnarok. That wasn't something they had in the previous God of War, the 2018 one.
Because
But they did have
the
it
distinction
in
between light elves and dark elves in Norse mythology is that the dark elves are the dwarves.
Are they?
I thought they were with the dwarves in Svartalfheim.
Well,
As-
it's
as
the,
far as-
the dark elves are mostly the things that are in the ground.
Well, as far as I know, as elves are also dwarves are just the elves that live underground, and the dark elves are the ones that live in the separate domain. What is it called again? Niflhel, I think.
Sort of.
It's where the dark elves live. I thought that was the distinction.
Yeah, their color description was black as pitch, and in the 2018 they're just the color of gray, like stone.
Well, they also kind of insect-like.
Yeah, which is this other reference, and so they made them something yet separate.
I mean, they feel completely out of place. In my opinion, the entire part in Alfheim just feels like not Norse at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It's
commentary on war.
Yeah, it's the attempt to make something weird with the Celtic ideas.
The thing is, it's in Norse mythology they are distinct places, but they have with their separate cultures. But representing them in the game, they would still have like similarities from the culture that inspired them. And it's not that the Norse were inspired by India to make the Dark Elves or something like that. It's still everything is still in the context of Northern Europe.
Mm-hmm.
But to get back to Fenrir's death,
Yeah, do you remember he had? They said he had 4 souls and one went into the dagger.
yes.
Split into 4
That
parts.
is even more wrong. They even got the number wrong because in the Kalevala, in Finnish, they believe it's 3 souls. One is your breath, the thing that keeps your body going. One is your character, and so that's actually you. And the last one is like a guardian that guards your name and such. That's the 3. There is no 4th.
The game re-explains this as form, mind, luck, and direction. Just direction specifically to guide the 4 parts to the light of Valheim.
Yeah, I have no idea where they took that from. It sounds completely made up.
At first, I heard erection, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I was like, "Wait, what?"
Then you
I'm no
repeat the
good at
erection. I was like,
speaking.
"Oh."
But the one
my
thing that
erection part.
does matter is the spell Atreus uses to resurrect him. I did have a translation of what he says, but I can't find it right now. It's basically in Icelandic: fall asleep, fall asleep, fall asleep from this, fall asleep from here, fall asleep. The thing is, he didn't even know it was magic. So the entire game happens and ends in the way it does because of an accident. And it's not that he could have learned it from Laufey, because it wouldn't have worked that way. He couldn't have all 4 of his soul bits if it was just that spell, because it only works with all 4 if you have the marble. She didn't have a marble. So it doesn't make sense in any way, especially since when he frees Garm like an activist stupid child, the realms go into chaos. All of the realms start to come together because of Garm tearing through the realms. And this is all solved because of this accident and this plot hole.
So even within the game, even within the writing, it doesn't make sense.
Wait, so the entire thing revolves around because I've never watched the entire way through because I just couldn't stomach it. So the entire thing revolves around Fenrir? Couldn't they just have had
Fenrir is the MacGuffin that you forget about.
Yeah, but couldn't they just have had them play the game more closely, have the story more closely to the first one, and then having them meet Fenrir and protect him from the gods if they wanted to have something like that? Why not do that instead of just instantly killing him?
Because it was
the game.
There are 1,000 reasons. One is it's contrived soap opera writing. The other is they wanted to be all, we're super creative by explaining how totally Garm and Fenrir are the same by making them the same dog. The same way that they went with this one really, I'd say, completely false idea that I think one guy had who claimed that Freya and Frigga are the same goddess, which is just untrue.
I think that's based on a mistranslation of Other, who is Freya's husband, but he's constantly away, so she cries red gold tears a lot.
And they made that is one of the main reasons that makes the plot happen. This nonsense that somehow Freya and Frigga are now the same, because Freya is not married to Odin. That's nonsense.
Well, she also is tries to. Well, she and her brother fuck, but that's a different story.
That's a different story.
But for me, it's just hard to not overstate how stupid the death of Fenrir is, because for me, as soon as that scene happened, it was just like my interest in the game was gone.
Mm-hmm.
My whole interest in the story was gone, because it's like so many questions, so much what the fuck, that I was just like, okay, I don't care anymore.
At that moment, okay, this is not about Norse mythology. This is just about name-dropping Norse mythology to tell whatever. And that's what it is.
Even go ahead.
Yeah, and that's also this this writing style where everything is so contrived and everything must now happen for this character that the game invented to be creative in quotation marks and subversive. that turns out that the whole world must now revolve around this character and everything be rewritten for this character. We know this type of writing. It's the self-insert nonsense that we see in things like the new Star Trek shows and Star Wars shows, where it's always the self-insert Mary Sue, where this happens around. Yeah.
Not even Lieutenant Mary Sue was this bad as Atreus, especially when you have to consider that his plot armor is the mask. And the thing about the mask is that it's in 3 languages: Greek, Japanese, and hieroglyphs. There's also many contradictions with the mask, such as how Odin lost his eye.
There's also that is also nonsense. So that's rewritten. The mask doesn't even exist in any mythology of the main ones.
In the previous game.
It's taken from the movie The Mask.
Also, the actual story behind Odin losing his eye is a great story.
Yeah, the real one.
But
the real one. It's payment for wisdom.
Is also the thing is, I'm not so in Ragnarok. I don't know it as detailed, but in the 2018 one, Atreus was just so annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And he of course, I get that rebellious puberty phase, etc. Okay, kid's gonna be annoying, but did you have to make him so annoying? And did you have to use his rebellious phase that way? Because it's just
in a way where he doesn't learn anything.
It's just used in a contrived way.
Too.
Yeah, it's the exact way how you spoil a child to become a rotten tyrant.
And the thing is, I don't even buy Kratos being a that kind of dad to begin with. But even if he's that kind of dad, if he's so strict, etc., why wouldn't he just hit him?
Yeah, and he couldn't be overcorrecting for. He couldn't be overcorrecting for his past children either, because one, his former child was a daughter. Second, he wasn't around much because he was constantly at war. So the way he decides to parent Atreus makes absolutely no sense.
And they're showing to have been a super loving husband. As in, they imply that he loved her so much. Why was he then so fucking distant with Atreus? So even in itself, it doesn't make sense, because why would you be so loving to your wife, but just don't look at your kid any way, shape, or form?
Oh, there's another thing about that. Near the end of the game, where you learn about background about Laufey before she met Kratos, is that she was more super amazing than everybody else, because she almost beat Thor in battle and drank better than Thor, and all the other things. Like because the woman needs to be better than everyone else at everything.
Nobody
even though she was raped by Modi.
Allegedly, somehow, magically.
What's the name of that character again?
Laufey the Just? Are you referring to someone else?
Yeah, because I didn't...
Laufey had the title The Just in the game?
Yeah, in 2018. Sindri says that she's Laufey the Just. She's also called the Guardian, apparently.
No, that's all made up bullshit. There's barely anything known about Laufey outside that she's the mother of Loki.
Yep, not even damn, what's the dad's name? There's nothing even on the dad for Loki.
Yeah, Loki is kind of this mysterious figure where you don't really know where he's from, what he's from, and what he's doing, because he just goes by his own tune. Half the time he helps the god, half the time he hinders the gods. He's also parent of the Fenrir.
Yeah, that's why since Loki didn't exist in this Norse thing nonsense. That's why I call it God of War Norse nonsense. Everything involving Loki had been rewritten and attributed to other characters. With the monsters he has which are as children with Angerboda, like Fenrir, the World Serpent, and Hel, they had to rewrite that into something else. So Fenrir is now his pet dog. The world serpent he somehow makes by attaching a soul to a pet that he found, and not pet, but a sacrifice basically. And Helheim originally was called Jormungrund, which was the place of the world serpent. And after Hel was born, the goddess, she became leader of Helheim, and the place was called Helheim in honor of Hel. In Norse, God of War Norse nonsense, Helheim always was called Helheim, and the leader of Helheim is just called Hel. And it's just a title, and it's a big bird that sits there at the moment.
Isn't it Hreisvelgr? It's Hreisvelgr that's supposed to be on the top of Yggdrasil, but now she's at the bottom. Also, I think it's originally a boy.
I wanted to stress the point that Loki is the literal parent, not adoptive parent. He literally gave birth to monsters.
Yes.
Including
he and Angerboda.
I think
those three specifically are with Angerboda.
But I think in some of the myths he was disguised as a woman and literally gave birth as a woman.
Yeah, but that was to Sleipnir.
Ah, yeah, Sleipnir, yeah.
Yeah, with those three, that's why Angerboda's title is the Mother of Monsters. And her name literally means boding anger.
And they made her a black woman.
She's an angry woman. This is what her name means, angry woman. And they made a black girl out of her, so it's a black angry woman.
And the love interest for
Great
Atreus
commentary by Santa Monica. Right? Great commentary.
I mean, how do they keep accidentally doing it? "Quote unquote" accidentally.
I don't know.
How do they keep doing it?
I don't know. I think in part they're trying to be ironic, and think they're subverting the irony or something.
It just reminds me of that time where Sargon had a debate with the one dude, a live debate, about quotas in the workplace, etc. And the guy who was pro quotas literally said that without the quotas, the black people wouldn't be able to do it, and the white people would just oppress them. And everybody was just like, "What the fuck? That's the most racist thing I ever heard."
Yeah, because he said that they can't do it. They're too incompetent. If you don't have the quotas, they won't get the jobs.
And white people are inherently evil and just can't help themselves. But stop them. So it with Angerboda, it accidentally keeps happening that their own logic makes them the biggest.
Well, also where they made her grandmother a black woman that abuses animals and eats their souls because she's addicted. They made her an addict. She's an addict. Originally, that character is not a giant, but an Icelandic witch. So she is whiter than white, but she steals children to eat. She's one of these fairy tale things that you scare children with into good behavior, because she only steals the bad children and eats them.
There's one character,
but they couldn't run with that, with having a black cannibal woman, I guess.
There's one character in Norse mythology that you could away with having them being black, but not in the way you think. In some myths, Hel is described as being half jet black and half white, like literally split in half. So
because
he could have done something there.
This is so cool.
Well, Wisp, you did remind me of something with when you said he puts Jormungandr's soul in a snake. In 2018, they have the story of Thiazi, but they butchered that too. But it still ends with him dying. But in in Ragnarok, the first marble Atreus grabs from the bag when he meets Angerboda is Thiazi's. So somehow he came back from the dead as well.
Oh god. I have forgotten so much nonsense of that game by now. But one thing that I remember is, so since Loki doesn't exist, that doesn't actually exist, and all the things still had to happen somehow in these weird twisted ways, a lot of the bad things Loki did in the Edda are now attributed to Odin and Thor. So we have the classic the classic thing that these activist writers do, which is turn good into evil and evil into good, because it's the only thing they know to do. So everything that Loki did is now done by the actual good guys in the Edda, and those are now bad guys. And Loki, the actual bad guy, is now a good guy and a hero who saves everybody. It's horrible. And there's some of these things that Mimir talks about where, oh yeah, and then Odin told Thor to trick those other people. Thor is not smart enough to trick anyone or deceive anyone. In the Edda, he is a brute. He is an upstanding, very direct character.
Oh.
He's not known for his smarts.
There's only one time, really, with Alvis, the dwarf, who tries to marry Thrud, but that's in the Poetic Edda.
I have two points.
If I can interject, I'm going to have to take off early, just like yesterday. So,
okay,
all right,
have a good one.
All right,
yeah. So, but feel free to continue the discussion, of course.
What I wanted to add is that in the Norse mythology, Loki isn't strictly a bad guy. He's a bad guy, but he's kind of a loose cannon as well.
Yeah, and he saves people somehow or makes up for his mistakes.
The other thing I wanted to mention is to the point of Thor being a brute. There's this fantastic poem where Odin is disguised as a ferryman, who ferries people across the river, and Thor comes to the river and wants to cross it. So there starts a discussion where Odin is just like, why should I ferry you across? And Thor keeps giving these examples, etc. And so you have these big discussions between the two. And Odin is clearly just fucking with him because he's just leading him around everything. And I distinctly remember this poem because it's just a very funny poem that really shows you the difference in the characters and how Thor is just straightforward and not really the smartest guy, and Odin is just like sometimes likes to fuck with his son.
You could almost say he's in that way. He's not really dumb, but he's as literal as an artist. In some translations and in some versions of it there's the line where Odin asks, "Why don't you swim?" and Thor's answer is, "Because I don't want to wet my balls."
Nice.
It's great. It's the Edda is amazing. It's such a fun read at times, and that's why I loved for this little excursion, and it's even a relevant one. Like the first MCU 4 movie, because the 4 in that movie is closer to the Edda 4 than the one in Ragnarok, because he's this stoic, very straightforward, literal guy. Just everybody remembers the scene in the pub where they drink the beer and then this is an amazing drink. Smashes the glass. I'll have another. Beautiful culture clash. Beautiful.
Did you say
Love
pub? It was a diner.
Yeah, whatever.
In America.
I don't know.
Well, if you guys wanted to read that, I think it's the Poetic Edda, as Crazy Philosopher was referring to. It's either that or it's going to be in the sagas, because that's where a lot of the other stories are. And
there are different stories in the Elder Edda and in the Poetic Edda.
Yeah, the prose is not
the Poetic Edda takes some parts of the Elder Edda and then writes some
the prose
weird
is
writing
a lot
around
smaller
it.
Comparisons. So it's probably Poetic.
The most important document is in university circles called Codex Regius, which was the Elder Edda, as we commonly called Elder Edda, but that's the one basically almost the only source of the Eddic poems about the gods that we still have, that has been kept through the ages. So it's an extremely important thing. I recommend having a read because it's very good. the Penguin Classics has a translation with both English and I think the Icelandic in it. And it tries to keep the poetic form so that it keeps in English the same theme and dream of the poetic text. So it's a very good read.
Oh, then I have a different Penguin Classics version of the Elder Edda.
I got that one in Iceland. So
interesting.
And,
but the Elder Edda was worked on by many people. One of them, Tolkien. He's mentioned in that as one of the contributors.
He was an important scholar for that stuff. Almost all the names from Lord of the Rings come from a lot of dwarves and other figures of Norse mythology.
Yes, but Gandalf is a dwarf.
One thing I love about that book is the list of names. At the end is the list of names, and all the separate different names for the gods are also listed. So they all have so many different nicknames that the list of names, where it just lists the names and on which page you find the names, is 80 pages long.
Oh, that is much longer than the version I have. You need to give me the ISBN number of yours, because that is wonderful. Because the names themselves tell a story. Because those nicknames, they're names of deeds and names of traits of people. And
like
if you
Odin,
read
the One-Eyed, Thor, the Lord of
Corpse
Hammer.
Father, All Father, and Corpse Father doesn't mean that he's a killer. That's another nickname of Odin. Corpse Father means that he cares about the dead. And if you read The Hobbit, for anyone who did, you remember the scene where Bilbo enters Smaug's lair, and Smaug knows that he's there but can't see him, and demands Bilbo's name. And Bilbo, knowing that names have power, doesn't want to tell Smaug, but also doesn't want to invoke the wrath of the dragon, so he tells him many other names he makes up on the spot based on his adventures, like Barrel Rider, because he rode barrels. The one who buries his friends, because he put his friends into the barrels.
So
and so on.
Just checked it, and I have to correct myself. It's 40 pages long.
Okay.
Still very long.
I was going through the prose, looking for references to Freya, and I did get confused on Freya and Frigg, because I was like, are these two different people? One's a dowry from the Vanir, I think, to calm Odin from killing everyone. And I was trying to figure out, because in Ragnarok, the game, there's references to her being part of a kingdom, and I think Freya...
The stuff and everything in Ragnarok is bullshit.
It's
Freya and Freya are Vanen or Vanir.
Yeah.
Which might be the interpretations of the neighboring pantheon of the Finnish people, since their most important god, not the creator, but the most important god, is Väinämöinen, I believe. So you have the Väinö at the beginning of his name. So it could be that the Vanir are named after that guy.
Okay.
And you have parallels, but you have parallels between the pantheons. But Freya and Frigga, the wife of Odin, they have similar domains, but not entirely the same. Like one is a goddess of marriage, the other more of fertility.
This was part of as I was researching, because in the game she's cursed or something, so she can't travel between the worlds unless she's in a bird form, but she can't do anything else.
That was made up.
Yeah, I know. I'm just like looking at what does she actually do? Because a lot of people are saying in the game, "Oh, Your Majesty, it's the Queen of or whatever." And I'm looking for any references to any kind of like feudalistic system or anything like that.
Also made her the head of the Valkyries for some reason.
Yeah, that was they call her the Queen of the Valkyries, and even when I researched that online, all the researchers were like, no, she's not a queen of anything. What are you talking about? So there's a scene where they're fighting Odin, and Odin gets weakened, and Freya puts some spell on him, and she's like bitching and saying, "Oh, how dare you do this? All these things," And she says, "Bow to your queen." And I'm sitting there going, "Wait a second, is she?
What the fuck?
Is she in charge of something?" Like, and I looked at it. She's in charge of the Valkyrie for both Odin as well as her. Odin, like the Einherjar, go to him, and the other ones go to her little patch of land, which is like this meadow that I think is like, yeah, it's basically heaven. I think their version of heaven.
There are various different halls for different purposes in the afterlife.
Right, and that's her thing though. That is the one thing I could point to that was she was in control of. So I was like, okay, wait a second, is she?
Yeah, but it's more about caring. She herself is not a warrior.
Yeah, she was the goddess of heaven, and in regards to sex and fidelity and all war and a few other things as well. So
I hear crazy noises.
Well,
no, I was just saying, yeah.
Okay.
It's hard to exactly say what she's saying outside of if you just take it to the context of, oh, this is a woman who's angry at someone, and she's in control.
It's so stupid.
If she just says bow to me, I'd be like, oh, that makes some sense because all she wants is power. But she says bow to your queen, and I'm like, again, you're talking to Odin, the guy who's on top of everyone. Do you think he would, if it wasn't for like Kratos and his son, she would
it's
even
some
have
weird
this
dominatrix, feminist, power fantasy bullshit.
That's what I'm
which
thinking.
We see all over the game.
That's what I'm thinking, because if she did not have Kratos next to him, or next to her, she'd be like, time to get the frickin' hell out of here if Odin wakes up and snaps his fingers and crushes me.
That's also why Mjolnir gets to Thrud, the daughter of Thor, instead of I think Magni gets it originally. Because Magni and Modi actually survive Ragnarok and are part of the new head pantheon.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, because what Ragnarok actually is not the end of the world. That's bullshit. Ragnarok is at the end of an era. It is a transition to the next generation, and Odin knows he will die at Ragnarok no matter what. However, what he does is not trying to prevent it. What he does is in the normal Edda, in the actual Edda, the best interpretation I'd see and come up with is he's trying damage control. He's trying to mitigate the worst of it, and the dog is distracting a bit. Sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah, but it's cute.
Great peonies.
Yeah, so what Odin really tries is damage control and trying to set up the world in the best way possible for the next generation. And the pantheon after him, since Thor dies at Ragnarok, while Thor slays the world serpent, he slams its head so hard that its poison sacs explode, and Thor dies in the poison cloud. That's what really happens. So Jormungandr is not thrown back through time into a time loop that doesn't make sense.
Wait, what?
Oh, don't bring that up. That's too confusing.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense in Ragnarok, by the way, in the game.
Yeah, they pulled a Marvel.
Because the world serpent, he knocks back the grown-up world serpent into the past, but you have the small world serpent that was just gotten the soul in the present, that's still slithering around and growing. So what the fuck was knocked back? What?
The baby snake you saw is actually the one in Ragnarok. Angrboda confirms it. No, Atreus confirms it.
What? The small one was instantly big a few days later?
No. Yes.
No. Was?
Oh my god. Yeah. Okay, that's equally stupid, but at least it makes the loop work.
I just love.
But it's something that you have to. This is a great example of that game has to tell, not show. It has to tell everything because nothing makes sense.
The funniest for me was even the actual like they took Suitor and they turned him into Ragnarok. Like they call him Ragnarok. It's not an event.
Yeah.
Cosmic,
and that was just we need Cosmic Giant to stab Asgard as it was done in the MCU movie.
Yeah, it's they lifted exactly from the Ragnarok film. Yeah, exactly.
It's so pathetic and dumb. And it's and then the Cosmic Giant made from Surtur and oh god, what was her name? Nimue.
His lover.
Sanmara?
Yes, Mara. The name only comes up once in the entire body of Norse texts. So they both come meld together. That creates cosmic giant Ragnarok, who has a giant sword and stabs the ground next to Odin several times, and that is what destroys Asgard.
Okay.
And it kills Freyr, even though in the Edda he dies because he doesn't have his sword.
Exactly, and because here, since Odin and Thor have to be super evil, they stole the sword from Freyr. While in the real myth, he gives his sword away in order for the hand of Gerda. Yeah, of Gerda, because he wants to marry.
There was also something I wanted to talk about with Freya being the Valkyrie Queen, because it doesn't even make sense by the game's logic. Ragnarok says that realm travel hasn't always been a thing. And, of course, Odin created 7 of 9 realms, including Asgard and Midgard. So he would also create Valhalla. So how is the Vanir goddess going to be queen of Valhalla, even though she can't even get to Asgard? Especially with a travel rune, which was necessary as established by 2018.
Wait, is Valhalla a different place in the Ragnarok game?
Yes, it's basically the it's the game. The way it's presented in the DLC is that it's a roguelike. It's basically a trial, but it's not actually a hall, as implied by the name Valhalla.
But it should be the beer hall in Asgard where Thor got drunk.
I'm afraid it's not.
Not in the DLC.
Even the game confirms it's different, because Odin says they come out of Valhalla. First of all, they don't leave except to fight each other in daytime.
Oh, and
That's
Tyr's
the
there.
time they leave.
Wait, what?
Tyr's in prison.
So all over the place,
he's not in prison there. I'm talking about the DLC. He's just there to help Kratos out.
Yeah,
he's like, hey, spar with me.
Oh, I haven't seen the
survives
DLC stuff.
Yeah.
There's actual game Tyr is there?
Yes, real Tyr is there.
Yeah, you
Does he have his
Is he missing his hand?
Yes.
No, because in Ragnarok says that he regrew his hand after Garm, who's supposed
Is
to
he
be
a lizard?
No. He said Mimir guessed that he did that by saying, "Oh well, he's resourceful."
No,
but at the time, all we knew, what turned out was that was the fake Tyr. That was actually Odin, who probably forgot to not have his hand.
No, he's referring to the real Tyr, I'm afraid.
Oh God.
So one thing I wanted to mention before, when we had the thing about Odin and him preparing for Valhalla, if you don't want to read any Edda stuff but want to know the character of Odin, just take Gandalf. It's quite literally, Gandalf was the main inspiration for Gandalf was Odin. So the old man, the friendly old man who kind of knows who he can use for what.
Who travels around.
Gandalf does, while he does certainly befriend the hobbits, etc., but he also uses them a certain way because he knows that they are more capable than the others would think. It's like why he goes to Bilbo with the dwarves. It's just because he knows he can Bilbo to get him to do it.
Yeah, and he uses tricks in order to get people to do what is necessary, like the way that he sends the dwarves to Bilbo, like just 2 at a time, so that he's not overwhelmed immediately. And then later on, he plays the exact same trick on Bjorn in the forest, where he sends where he enters together with Frodo, Bilbo, and then tells the dwarves, "You all come with 5 minutes between you, so that we don't overwhelm Bjorn." So because he's a very dangerous guy if he gets angry.
Yes, it's not, Odin isn't an unkind person, but he knows how to, well, quote unquote, play people in a smart way, so that everybody gets out in the best way possible.
Yeah, and he's not just clever; he's also extremely powerful. Like we're talking leagues ahead of like Thor. Like people think Thor. Thor is like this amazing war god or fighter. It's like, yeah, he is definitely.
He is the strongest.
Yeah, but then like compared to Odin, like it's not even. That's why he's the Allfather. It's not even a thing to consider.
Yeah, but for is physically the strongest, and then has a belt that doubles his strength. So he's Son Goku in regards to strength.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And
He also needs the gloves to equip Mjolnir.
Odin has his smarts and magic.
Right.
Odin is the father of magic and writing and runes.
I can't remember.
But he is also a strong warrior, but he's not he doesn't have the strength as Thor.
Did the game teach Odin like through Frigg, or was it Jord who taught Odin how to do runes, or was it someone else?
Right.
Odin got if Odin got the runes, he got them. In the game.
Yeah.
In the game was some other character. In the Edda, he got the runes from the series, the Oracle. What was her name?
You mean the series from the Voluspa?
Yes, I think she taught Odin the runes.
Or
did she only ask him? Or did she only ask him? Do you know the runes? And
yeah, combining these two mythos seems like a very daunting task, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but if they could just have made it more accurate and told the story of Odin,
they made so many changes for no reason, like to having his hand again. There's no reason to have that.
Just as an addition to what we said before, the name of the series is Völva.
That makes sense.
I remember also in the game, the Three Fates, the Three Sisters.
Oh, no.
It was like, they don't know exactly what the future is. They just have good understanding of psychology.
That's the stupidest Norns I have ever heard of.
It was like, wait a second.
In the game, like, what the fuck was that just now?
And they're underneath the water for shits and giggles just to hide from everyone. I'm like, what are you...
Such a pretentious scene.
Wait, how are they experts in psychology? I want to hear that.
I don't know.
They just babble some crap. Yeah, they just babble some crap.
Like Kratos, I can see that you have problems with your repressed feelings.
Yeah,
come lie down and talk it out with me.
They're just good at cold reading and making guesstimates.
Yeah, they already have prophecies that I think they made, and they have it all etched in stone and with paintings and stuff. And it's like, this is going to happen because we're seeing the progression of the story after it's happened right near the end of the game. And I'm thinking, okay, so they already have prophetic stuff, but then they have these three women who aren't the Fates, or they are the Fates, but they're not using time or foresight.
No. There's a part in the game where Mimir tells that oracles are just making up stuff to manipulate people to make it happen, and then sometimes it backfires on them. But you could argue that for the standard oracles. And if you didn't have gods really existing, but the Norns should have actual magical power. They are the equivalent, the exact equivalent to the Fates in Greek, to the Moiren.
But there's
one more thing. Even in the Edda, it is acknowledged that there's not just one set of Norns. Every place has its own Norns. There are various Norns, and there are also more benevolent Norns, and there are some more assholish Norns that make that are more likely to make bad stuff happen. And there is a lot of places where Christianization happened. You have I know some places in southern Germany that although there was a stronger Celtic influence. When there was Christianization, they just declared certain pagan deities as those were actually humans, and they're no saints. We changed the name slightly, and we put them into our book of saints so that you can still give them a prayer or something, or a day in the calendar where you honor them, but they're actually totally Christian human people, saints, and nothing to do with your Norse nonsense. Also,
you joke crazy about Kratos sitting down with a psychiatrist. That's kind of what he did in the Valhalla DLC. Is he made peace with his past self? Because
but he already did that.
Well, no, he confronted a manifestation of his the Greek Kratos, and it's supposed to be like Greek Kratos sitting on his throne as the god of war. And Kratos basically tells him, "Is like, hey man, I get it. You were upset, you were angry, but you got to let that shit go."
But he already did that at the end of God of War 3.
I think I'm just like paraphrasing it, but I think that was like the gist of it. Also, they bring back, not for the whole DLC, but for like a good chunk of it, they bring back Helios, and he replaces Mimir's head for a bit.
What?
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, and they brought back the original voice actor for Helios from the Greek trilogy.
Sounds like a lot of member berries.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he basically talks shit to Kratos the entire time. He's like, "Hey, remember the day you cut my head off? Yeah, that was crazy, wasn't it?"
Ah, member berries.
Yeah,
truly member berries.
He shows. Sorry to cut you off again, crazy, but Helios shows up and he's like, "Oh, you're not even going to say hello to me?" And Kratos is like, "Hello."
The member berries are starting to ferment and turn into a very rancid wine.
Yeah.
I did want to speak on something. Oh yeah, it's very poetic that the axe is held up by an omega symbol on his back. Kratos.
That's a nice touch. But Crazy, what did you want to say?
Another one thing I wanted to finish the topic of the nodes. The main three nodes, the ones that are most mentioned, are responsible for human fates and nourishing the Yggdrasil. So that's the main. They are powerful beings, very powerful, but it's not like fate in Norse mythology is a bit complicated. You can't escape it, but at the same time, there are some things that are a bit wishy-washy with it.
It's like look, it's a bit like Mass Effect.
Uh-oh.
The ending is shit, but on the way there you can do a lot of nonsense that in the end amounts to nothing.
Oh.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, it's bad and it's even worse. It's like, okay.
Odin can influence stuff, like he can get the souls of warriors to Valhalla, etc., but in the end he can't survive Ragnarok.
Right.
Yeah, that's a fixed thing.
Yeah.
It's the details, that there are wonky details, but there are certain fixed things. Right, the pantheon that survives. Magni and Modi, which are killed in the 2018 game, they are both on the next pantheon. They're heading it together with Freya and Balder, who's also dead in 2018 as the main villain.
Right.
So 3 of the guys who are supposed to survive Ragnarok are killed by Kratos. Or his idiot son. And the others are the brothers of Odin, who make absolutely no appearance because they probably didn't know what to make of them.
Yeah, that was the weird thing that I think they tried to explain it in Ragnarok, the game, why Modi and Magni didn't show up. I can't remember why. They didn't show up for some reason. Or Balder, for that matter, in Valhalla, even though they were killed in battle, essentially. I can't remember what the reason was. I think they hand waved it away, basically. Like, oh,
I don't
for
know
some
of any
reason.
explanation.
Yeah, I think.
Well,
I
if
think there was
gods
like a line of
die,
dialogue
if gods die, that's different from not mortals dying.
Yeah, but in 2018 it says that God and mortals go to Valhalla for some reason.
Right. But they didn't end up in Valhalla in Ragnarok, is what I'm saying. In the game, they didn't show up again. But I think there's like a line that explains it for some reason, but I don't remember what the line is. Somebody in the chat probably knows.
Speaking
they
of,
should have just
Odin's
gone to Helheim.
Odin has 3 kids, but only one of them is referenced with an armor set. Vidar, the one who slays Fenrir with the big shoe.
Wasn't that his brother?
Yeah. No, he has, the two brothers are Ve and Vili.
Ah, Vili, I remember. The other one I forgot. That's why I mixed them up with Vidar.
The three of them make Ask and Embla, which is the same in 2018. It's just that, well, he's evil. Oh, and one more thing before I mute for a bit. Skull and Hati's story is also defanged, which is common with the wolves, with Fenrir and Garm, because they chase the sun and moon, but in the Eddas, the sun and moon move because of two children who ride chariots that carry them, and they are to be devoured at Ragnarok. But they remove the children, except for Sol, who also has an armor set, and Freki too. Gary and Freki don't make an appearance, but Freki is referenced in a piece of gear.
It's all just random pick and choose, and whatever's left over gets name dropped in other ways. Oh, and then they make up complete nonsense, like Lunda. Crazy. Do you know of Lunda?
No, but I do know why you're referencing it. And yes, she's not even the same voice actress as Ellie.
Ellie?
From Borderlands 2. Yeah, the fat one. Fat mechanic.
What's that to do with that?
They sound similar.
Okay. So Lunda is not a name that appears in the Edda, as far as I know. There is no dwarf called Lunda. There are no female dwarfs.
Either.
In general, I know. Eitri, is that the other dwarf of the brothers? Like the brother of Brock.
In the game.
Yeah.
I forgot their names.
It should be Eitri, I think. So when he's gone, a woman dwarf appears by the name of Lunda, who apparently has a thing for Brock. And she talks, and she's also, of course, one of the best blacksmiths ever, because she's a woman. And she talks with an American Southern accent.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah, that was... that's
what?
Right.
Why does a Norse dwarf talk with an American Valley Girl accent?
Well, they got
He
as a Jewish New Yorker, so it's...
It's so horrible. Well, Odin, you meant?
Yeah, the actor.
Yeah, Odin is a Jewish New Yorker capitalist who is evil and manipulates the whole world.
Hey, wait, Jewish New Yorker obsessed with money. What do you mean by this?
Who enslaves the dwarves with, as the game says, imperial financialism. Because they wouldn't say capitalism, but I bet they wanted to say capitalism. But they just said financialism.
Imperial is the wrong word to begin with as well. But it's just they keep accidentally doing this shit.
Accidentally?
Yeah, I was going to say accidentally.
That nothing is accidental about the bad writing in that game. Because we now know that what was it? Sweet Baby Inc. was the consultant firm for this game.
Well,
they were?
The influence, I think, was from a guy named Sam Hendrick, who I think he did a few other things as well, but one of the people criticized the woke element. There's a few we could talk about. One of them was the side quest called Across the Realms, where it's a story about two characters, Jari and Somer. And
the gay story?
Yeah, it's based off Sam Hendrick and his late partner, Jake. I think Jake Snipes. So they put that story into the game. And people are like, well, that's fine, but it has nothing to do with the story of the Norse, and it felt out of place. So...
Crazy, do you want to tell us what the Norse thought of gay people?
They weren't too kind on that. They didn't look too kindly upon that. Generally, quote unquote, to phrase it in that way, the sexual deviancy, so something that isn't considered the norm, was not looked upon very, very well. There's even a myth about the Frey and Freyr, Frey and Freya were the siblings that had relation with each other, and how the gods. So there was the story where the gods waited in the bedroom for them, and because they knew it would happen, so they came in the bedroom, and when they were in the bed, they would tie them to the bed and then throw stuff at them, laugh at them, and make fun of them to show them how wrong it was what they were doing. So there are quite a bit of story about how it's not accepted. So it's just there's this way that is correct, and you should do that way. Also because, in Iceland, you don't really have much choice because everything is very much about survival of the fittest.
Yeah, and
So
when your population isn't very, very big, you
It technically could have happened, but they still would have had children with women, even if they were gay.
Mm-hmm. In a way, I think the Romans were the most open and organized with that. Where even when there were same-sex lovers, they would still have their normal families that they had children with.
Yeah, there's
because
a few
it was
other,
to be expected to have children.
There's a few other elements that people took issue with. I think the first one, the obvious one, was the difference between Freya's appearance, how she looked a lot more modest compared to the previous game, where you could see her chest, you could see her hair, and you could argue it's because of the death of her son. She's a lot more distraught. I don't know exactly if that's part of the character design, but she does look very different from the first game in terms of clothing and look. And they were saying, oh, well, no, she's more functional. She was more politically correct, and it's...
politically correct is the exact word for censorship. Because politically correct is a term that comes from the Soviet Union that means what the party says.
Well, modern sensibilities, strong,
which is the same thing.
Female
It's not modern sensibilities. Yeah. I'm sorry I have to translate that. But modern sensibility is just another buzzword that means socialist sensibilities. It's their censorship. Yeah. Just like the modern audience does not exist. It's what the socialists want to exist that have the modern sensibilities. It's not what exists, it's what they want to exist.
From what I heard from others, it seemed like the weakest thing to say about it, because her personality and what she goes through is a lot different than what you have expected for her plight. And the way she
in
talks.
general, the designs in the Norse games are the women are not pretty.
Well, even with
while I think the closest is Sif. That looks pretty.
Yeah, even with Baldur, like all these tattoos, and it's just over the top, I think, at times.
Baldur's supposed to be in the Edda. He's the best guy ever.
Yeah, he's the main character.
Exactly, but he's all messed up, and he's got all these tattoos, and he hates his mom. And
he's an asshole.
I remember Odin refers to him as my closer.
Oh yeah.
Baldur was my closer.
So one thing to add to the point of Smart that Smart made with changing designs, etc. I have the thing with in Spider-Man 2 and in the Silent Hill 2 remake, the faces of the female characters. As soon they take me out so much out of the game because they're so ugly. Yeah. Like Mary Jane in Spider-Man 2, she looks disgustingly ugly. I don't know why they did that to her face, but
it's a self-insert from one of the staff members.
When you play the game, you just every time she's on screen, you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
And it takes you out of the game.
Yeah. And think of the Greek God of War games, the women looked pretty. Absolutely gorgeous.
They didn't have to make Mary Jane absolutely gorgeous. Just make her normal looking if you want to.
Oh, yeah.
Fight beauty standards or anything, just make her normal looking. Don't make her ugly.
No. I mean the Greek God of War game compared to the Norse. The women looked stunning. They were beautiful, and in the Norse they're just ugh. Why bother?
Well, we're not going to get into whole Agrabota. We've talked to that to death. So.
No. Why would we?
Yeah, it's kind of old.
That's in the game. It's a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I will say this is that it doesn't even make sense for her to be black. Not even just genetics. It's that her family tree has to be a ladder. But for even that ladder to start, at least 2 of Bergelmir's 100 children have to be black.
They could have easily have tied it in with the Dark Elves or made some commentary about
anything but Africans.
They passed.
If you had people, as you said before, with the Black Elves, if they are black, then that means black, not brown Africans.
It means would be pitch black. Yeah, exactly.
It means Europeans with pitch black skin that you would accuse of blackface.
They should have gone all the way and either have given her a thick Nigerian accent or a thick Bronx accent.
Bronx.
Either of the two.
Yeah. When you already have the Southern Belle fat dwarf, blacksmith. So you have the blacksmith that comes in and is better at blacksmithing than anyone else. The blacksmith woman dwarf. You have Kratos' wife that is better at fighting and drinking than almost everyone, including Thor. And then you have the only referenced communist activist, arsonist dwarf who writes treaties against Odin's financial imperialism that Mimir considers as probably my equal, if not smarter than me. That so all the women characters are made better than equal to or better than the men. And EFAB wanted to tell us this game is not woke, and we know Sweet Baby was involved. What else do you want?
And
even
in the end,
even without that information, because Angrboda's story, at least from her character, is that she even yells at Loki when he says, maybe we could be together and fight at Ragnarok. She says, if I was supposed to be part with you, I wouldn't disappear through your mural halfway through. And even Grilla mentioned something where you'll be a forgotten chapter in his story. Well, and that's the most blatant shit in the world, and yet you couldn't figure that out.
Yeah, that's a feminist slogan right there.
So in the end, it will turn out that the wife of Kratos was Thor in drag. Because that happened in Norse myth. He did put on women's clothing and played a woman for a bit.
Yeah, but it wasn't Thor's idea.
Yeah, it was Loki's idea, and it was to get his hammer back.
It was
his hammer back, and to not actually hand over Freya to an asshole.
Yeah, to giants.
Yeah, so it was for a good cause.
There was the other element of, in general, how they characterize Kratos as being no longer a rage-filled warrior, being more emotionally open, being more reflective, whereas he used to be more stoic in his previous persona. Now it's seen as he's more modern, he's more sensible. He's more
more modern. Yes, he's a doormat man now.
He's a father
who does what his abusive wife tells him to do, which by the way is an important plot point.
Well, he has that famous saying or the famous quote that we all hear all the time is "be better." Like that's his solution to.
That's another standard commie slogan that we hear constantly. We had it in the Falcon show.
Oh yeah,
where at the end he told "be better." And whatever, but there are so many shows and things that at this point I forgot how many that always have this thing of we need to be better. Yeah, better than what? What do you mean?
How do we solve the problem with illegal immigration? Be better. It's like, what are you talking about? How do we be better at the border? Just be better. Like, I don't understand.
For a while, it was
what do you want? What do you want us to? What do you want to happen?
Yeah,
the vague notion of progress is leftist basics.
Yeah, it's
have magically utopia.
Yeah, we're having this problem in Canada right now with politics, discovering that our green slush fund over $400 million are going straight to our Liberal Party member companies, and everyone's like, "Oh, we're helping the environment." Blah blah blah. It's like you're helping yourselves.
Yeah, that's how leftism works. That's how socialism works. That's what it is for. That's why socialism works, because it works to achieve this. Not what it tells you, but this, because it's a scam. Nothing else.
Just
you want to help the environment, you need to do something else. Sorry, crazy?
To one up the thing that Smut said, one of my favorite things ever is in Germany, they shut down all the nuclear power plants because of their green policies. Like 2 weeks later, they started using the coal power plants again. They restarted them and started building new coal power plants because they just didn't have enough power plants.
Yeah, but for that to make sense, why the Social Democrat Party did that is, for that you have to know German history, is that the Social Democratic Party in Germany, which is, I think, the oldest Social Democrat Party in the world, that also founded Socialist International and the Progressive Alliance, and these, which are organizations that coordinate all the left-wing parties, not just Social Democrats, but radical socialists and communists and national socialists and socialist nationalists. And if you don't believe me, you can look up the member list on Wikipedia. There are parties in there that are called National Socialists of this or that. In that organization. And the Social Democrats in Germany were formed through the coal miners. So that's why that's the one demographic that the Social Democrats are not betraying. They betray everybody else, but not the coal miners.
So, just to finish this aside, but there's another country that does something very funny. Britain has natural resources that they could use, but because of their green policies, they are basically outlawed from coal mining and oil mining, etc. So they import all the oil and coal from Russia.
I mean, technically, it is smarter to first use the resources of others before you use your own.
Sure, but the thing is, the reason why they're doing it is retarded, because they're like, we don't want to pollute the environment, so we just make you pollute it by bringing it to us and then pollute it.
Well,
we don't get our gas from Russia anymore because somebody blew it up, and now we buy our gas from India, which has to be shipped. For that, you need a very, very environmentally unfriendly chemical process to put it on the ship containers to have it shippable. And we also pay India 10 billion, I don't know, a year in what is it? Build up money. I forgot the English word for that. Developmental aid. Developmental aid.
Startup money?
No, developmental aid because it's a third world country. Just as we do with China, because it's a third world country. Both have space programs, because third world countries have space programs. And India buys the gas from Russia. So instead of buying our gas from Russia, we now buy it from India that buys it from Russia, but with more environmental harm.
Oh, I love it.
Anyway,
it's great.
Back to the game. I think we're going to close it right here. We've been going on for almost 2.5 hours.
Oh, we can go for another 2.5 because God of War Ragnarok is so full of shit.
I'd like to get a list of all these things and just make a video because we have so many. Like I have a bunch. I'm sure you have a bunch that I don't even know of.
Yeah, I listened today to a compilation of the Mimir stories that are in the game, and it's I think 2 hours long of just Mimir babbling. And just those stories, if you take them all apart and would correct them for what is actually going on in the Edda, you would make a 3-hour video just on those. And there's lots more stuff in the game. If you would compare, that would be a task on the size of what Mauler did when he did good videos.
So
you would have a 5-6 hour explanation of why God of War is lore shit.
Thing is, I don't think anybody here is against taking some liberties, which they did in the Greek ones. They took liberties, but they were fine. They were good liberties to take. In the Norse games, they just take all the wrong liberties. And Whisp sent me the video, and I just watched like 10 seconds in and I was already fuming from the mouth of how wrong it is.
It just tries to frame Odin and Thor as absolute villains, as the absolutist evil ever.
I think
if you wanted no, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think a lot of the creators just wanted to make a game without considering the cultural value that this has to people who study these things and care about these things. It's like changing the mythos of Japanese Shintoism or any kind of mythos from any, like, imagine Indian pantheon. Let's just change all the gods around. Like, you probably wouldn't want to do that. It's not very nice.
Oh yeah, the activists that did this, like the things like Sweet Baby and all the other people involved in this garbage, they always go on about cultural appropriation being evil, and they called the Ghost of Tsushima game cultural appropriation because an American company made it. Well, but Japan loved it because it was so accurate. But here, it's the same people that make the worst sins of what they call cultural appropriation and want us to love it. And here it's okay because it's something European. Because they hate everything Western.
I think we should have a shared Google Doc and just add to it and make a list of things just to organize, because I'm sure there's going to be lots of overlap when we start sharing our notes of things that either are not lore accurate, are obviously part of some sort of inclusion philosophy, political ideology. And then you can say, okay, these liberties are okay. If you wanted to pick Thor as fat, like, I don't really care. It's not a big deal. But it depends on how it works in the story. Is he like a warrior still? Is he just...
They just wanted to copy that from the MCU did it, so we'll do it too.
Yeah, like you would have that sort of note, like, okay, maybe they were influenced, but like definitely with the Suitor, like that's like lifted completely from the MCU. They just took that like wholeheartedly.
One thing I wanted to mention is the thing that saddens me the most is that for other cultures, like for example with Assassin's Creed Shadows, the Japanese, the government got involved to protect their culture.
Mm-hmm.
With European stuff, everybody's like, oh no, we can't protect that culture. We can't do that. That it's imperialistic.
Oh.
It's a racist, horrible culture. We can't protect it. But
Egypt,
when there's so much beautiful stuff in Norse mythology, so much beautiful stuff in German mythology, in Swiss mythology, there's so many cool stories, so much great stuff, and so much culture that everybody just chooses to ignore and not protect. And that, to me, that's just incredibly sad. And to me, it just starts with the example of sometimes when I take a tram here to go to the city or anything, you don't hear a single word of the native language for half an hour in a busy, quote-unquote, small train. And it just kind of saddens you, because I live in the capital of Switzerland, and you barely hear the native language in a busy time of the day in a tram. It's just like, it's just weird. And we just don't protect our own culture, which is as worth protecting as every other culture is protecting. I mean, Canadian culture is worth protecting, American culture is worth protecting. All the good parts of all the different cultures are worth protecting, and people do have a right to their own culture. But for some reason, when it's just Western culture, we just go like, no.
No, not we. It's the leftists.
Well, not we, but
and the socialists. The only cultures they protect are the cannibalistic ones.
All right, guys. Well, I think we've been rambling on for just enough time. I do want to continue this conversation. I'd like to do it in a document form just so we can share ideas. And I'm going to start that up tonight. And I'm going to make some categories so that we know where to go.
For closer. You can put up the some of the screenshots put in the group.
Yeah, I saw those
from the call.
Yeah.
My favorite is Grieb's Firebomb, because that's the thing where Mimir goes on about the arsonist dwarf who is totally the better writer than him, and she writes socialist treaties. And then there's artifacts from other cultures in there. The last picture is from some Mayan statue.
What?
That is just an thing in an empire in the south. So it's not even on another continent. It's just in the south. And the Mayans are portrayed as... The Mayan gods are portrayed as something positive.
quickly have to say that that's
everyone's good but us.
I'm reading it, that's why I almost screamed, what is their ruler of the heavens apparently saw fit to gift humanity with advances like writing, farming, and the calendar and sciences. That was Odin did.
Yeah.
In Norse myth. That's what Odin did.
Yeah. The Western gods are all evil. Only other gods are good.
All right, guys.
That's all these artifacts. It's insane.
All right.
It's such a propaganda piece.
I did want to say one thing. Even with the excuses of, we wanted Kratos to fight the Aesir gods, there is one way you can do it, and it's really easy. Just have Kratos find Loki and Sigyn in the cave. Loki can trick him into believing the gods are evil. The gods can really be good. He can be on the wrong side of Ragnarok, and he can be the one who kills Loki in the end. And everything comes together. Yeah.
There's ways to do something. I'm still for the Kratos fishing game where everyone is chill in the north. But my closer on this would be the sad thing is that for many people, especially young people, this game will be their first and maybe only ever exposure to Norse mythology, and it is complete garbage. And that is why they do this. The aim is not just to ruin something for you, it's to manipulate the next generations into believing that their distortions are the actual thing.
Okay, guys, I think that's a good time to wrap it up. And I wish we had more time to talk about these things, but I think it'd be more productive if we get that document going and just list the things. I don't want to, because we could
gonna be...
Yeah, but
I don't know, man. I thought about doing it back then, and then I realized this. I'd be sitting there for months chewing through this.
We need multiple perspectives because some people are going to be like, well, who cares? And some people are going to be like, well, this is very important, and we have to gauge each one.
But the craptivists will say about everything, oh, who cares when your stuff is destroyed?
Everything's just their perspective is opposition. Whether you care is either
but
who cares or it's always been this way.
But in this regard with us, not necessarily us, but it could be other people we could ask. Like with Crazy, they really care about the Norse mythos, specifically from the Edda. Some people care specifically about the mythos of the games. So we can say, okay, well, this still makes sense to the average player. This will make sense to the person who actually likes the mythos. And this cares about people who like the continuity or whatever the argument is. So I want to present all of those elements where creative liberties can be taken. And we can say, well, you can make Agrabota black, but here's how you would do it, right? As opposed to just making her black. So that's what I want to get into because there's lots to talk about and we don't want to be too nitpicky.
So they put a lot of work into the game, but just as there was a lot of work put into The Last Jedi. It's just in the wrong parts.
That's it.
In the Greek games, in the Greek games, when they have Greek letters somewhere in the textures, they form real words. They make sense. The runes in God of War Ragnarok are just random.
Not even the logo is right.
Yeah, and the joke is the runic, that there are several runic alphabets. The runic alphabet is how you can write English properly. They have a rune for the th. You can write English, the English language, phonetically accurate in runes, because that's where it comes. That's where the phonetics come from. So they could have just taken English text, translated into runes automatically, and just write. That's by the way the things in The Hobbit, where Tolkien made maps and had written them with runes. You can learn the runic alphabet and read that because it's English.
Yep.
They could have done that. They didn't. Instead, they were obsessed with making up tons of changes to the lore.
All right.
So I get lost in millions of pieces.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for all your time. I wish we had the other guys here today as well, because they share a bit more input, but we could always talk about this.
We didn't talk about the gameplay in depth of this game.
And
we didn't do memes.
That's a big thing. Yeah, we'll get to. I'm kind of tired, honestly. We could talk about these things in much more detail, and I do want to do a video series on it because I just don't know as much. My interest level is more on narrative. So when I see things about gameplay, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty limited, but people play it anyway because they enjoy it. So they get their money's worth for whatever value. And the rest of us are like, well, it's nothing special. It's lore breaking. It's not accurate to mythos. It's a downgrade to a lot of other gamers. And people are eating this up. And we're like, all right, fair enough. It's your thing, but we're going to show you where you're wrong. And that's all we got to do. Just get it off our chest. Point to this video. Because there's very few videos on the topic that take it seriously. That I can say, oh yeah, this is Ragnarok and where they screwed it up. I don't want to point to Synthetic Man. I don't want to point to all these other guys because they're too biased, and it's too.
They also have very limited knowledge on the real matter, but they do see that something's wrong.
It's a layman surface level, whereas we know this stuff. We've watched it, and we were just laughing at it all the years ago as it came out. We're like, okay, maybe we should talk about it and put it down in paper. Anyway, thank you for your time. This will take a few months to put together, and we have other projects going on as well. But I think this will be fun for everyone who likes the topic. So thank you so much for your time, all your commentary, all your comments. And we'll talk to you guys real soon. Have yourself a good one. Good night.
Good night.